My phone rang at 3:07 a.m. I knew who it was before I even looked. Only one person would call at that hour. Only one person would be desperate enough. Victor Hartwell, CEO, the man who'd fired me 6 weeks ago to save money on unnecessary overhead. I let it ring 4 times, then answered. Dana. His voice was cracked, shaking. He'd been crying. Dana, please, we need your help. I sat up in bed, turned on my lamp, and smiled in the darkness. Victor, it's 3 a.m. What's the emergency? Everything is locked. The entire system, the research databases, the patient files, the clinical trial data. We can't access anything. The outsourcing team says they need a decryption key that only you have. I let the silence stretch, let him sit in it. Dana, are you there? I'm here. I'm just confused. You told me my security systems were over-engineered and unnecessarily complex. You said a team in Mumbai could handle everything I did for 1/3 of the cost. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, Dana, we have an FDA inspection in 72 hours. If we can't access our clinical trial documentation, we lose our approval. The entire company collapses. That does sound serious. It's a $400 million drug approval, 12 years of research, 200 employees who will lose their jobs. Please, I'm begging you. I got out of bed, walked to my kitchen, made myself coffee while Victor Hartwell waited on the line, probably having a heart attack. Victor, here's the thing. 6 weeks ago, you called me into your office and told me I was being replaced. You didn't give me a chance to transition my work properly. You didn't ask what systems I'd built or how they worked. You just said, we're going in a different direction. I know, it was a mistake. You had security escort me out of the building after 9 years, like I was a criminal. Dana, please. I'm not done. I poured my coffee, took a sip. You replaced me with a team that charges $15 an hour. You thought cybersecurity was just about running antivirus software. You thought the encryption protocols I built were paranoid overkill. Silence. Now it's 3 a.m. and you're crying on the phone because those paranoid protocols are the only thing standing between you and total destruction. What do you want? Money? I'll pay anything. Just name your price. Interesting, because 6 weeks ago you told me $95,000 a year was too expensive for IT overhead. You told me automation and outsourcing were the future. I was an idiot. What do you want? I set my coffee down. $8,000 an hour. Minimum 24-hour engagement, payment up front before I touch anything. Complete silence. That's $192,000 for 1 day of work. For saving your entire company. For protecting a $400 million drug approval. For the 9 years of expertise that built the systems you're now locked out of. I paused. The math seems reasonable to me. Dana, I don't have that kind of liquid capital at 3 a.m. Then I guess your FDA inspection isn't going to go well. Good night, Victor. Wait, he was definitely crying now. Wait, please, I'll figure it out. I'll get the money. Just please don't hang up. I took another sip of coffee. Wire transfer by 6 a.m. I'll be at your office by 7, not a minute before the money clears. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen my itemized invoice for the emotional distress of being escorted out by security after 9 years of loyalty. I hung up. Then I sat at my kitchen table, watching the sun start to rise, thinking about how we got here. This story really began 9 years ago, when I was a naive 29-year-old who thought hard work and loyalty meant something in corporate America. Let me tell you how I learned otherwise. If you've ever been the person who keeps everything running, the one who works late fixing problems nobody else understands, the one who gets taken for granted until suddenly you're gone, This story is going to hit close to home. I'm Dana Reyes. I was 38 when Victor Hartwell decided I was too expensive to keep around. Single mom, one daughter, Alina, who was 12 at the time, a mortgage, a car payment, and a career I'd built from nothing. I'd been at Hartwell Biomedical Solutions for 9 years. Started as a junior IT technician, worked my way up to senior IT security manager, the only person in the entire company who truly understood how our systems worked. Hartwell Biomedical was a pharmaceutical research company. Clinical trials, drug development, patient data, the kind of sensitive information that hackers dream about and regulators obsess over. My job was keeping all of it safe. Over 9 years, I'd built our entire security infrastructure from scratch. Firewalls, encryption protocols, backup systems, access controls, the digital fortress that protected $400 million worth of research data. I'd also built something else, something I'd learned the hard way was necessary. A decryption system that only I could access. Not because I was trying to hold the company hostage, because I'd seen what happened at other companies when IT people left and nobody could access critical systems. I'd watched horror stories unfold when encryption keys were lost or stolen. So I built a master key system, documented it thoroughly, stored the documentation in a secure location that I controlled, and made sure that if anything ever happened to me, the company could still access their data. I told Victor about this system when I built it, explained exactly how it worked, offered to train a backup person who could hold a second key. He said it wasn't a priority, too expensive to have redundancy in IT. I was reliable, I wasn't going anywhere. Famous last words. 8 months ago, Hartwell brought in a new COO, Patricia Vance. She came from a manufacturing background and had one specialty: cutting costs. Within her first month, she'd identified the IT department as bloated overhead. Within 2 months, she'd found an outsourcing company in Mumbai that promised to handle all our IT needs for $15 an hour per technician. "This is a no-brainer," she told Victor. "We're paying Dana $95,000 a year plus benefits. We could get a whole team for less than that." I was in that meeting. I tried to explain the complexity of our systems, the security requirements for pharmaceutical data, the FDA compliance issues, the encryption protocols that required specialized knowledge. Patricia smiled at me like I was a child. "Dana, I appreciate your expertise, but IT is IT. These outsourcing firms work with Fortune 500 companies. I'm sure they can handle a mid-sized pharma company." Victor nodded along. He trusted Patricia. She'd saved money at her previous company. What he didn't know was that her previous company had suffered a massive data breach 6 months after she left. The cost-cutting measures she'd implemented had left them vulnerable, but nobody mentioned that in her reference checks. 6 weeks before that 3 a.m. phone call, Patricia called me into her office. "Dana, we've made the decision to transition IT operations to our new outsourcing partner. Your last day is Friday." 3 days' notice after 9 years. What about the transition? The encryption systems, the backup protocols, the security documentation? "The outsourcing team will handle it. They're professionals." "They'll need the master decryption key. It's stored in a secure location. I can walk them through." "Friday is your last day, Dana. HR will handle the details." I stared at her, this woman who'd been at the company for 8 months, who'd never asked me a single question about how our systems worked, who saw me as a line item on a spreadsheet. "You're making a mistake," I said quietly. "The decision is final. Security will escort you out on Friday." Security, after 9 years, like I was a threat. I spent my last 3 days documenting everything I could, writing instructions, leaving notes in systems, trying to make the transition as smooth as possible despite the circumstances. But the decryption key wasn't something I could just hand over in a document. It required in-person training. It required someone who understood the system. It required time that Patricia wasn't willing to give. So when security walked me out on Friday afternoon, the key walked out with me. Not because I was trying to hurt them, because they never asked for it. The first week after I left, I focused on myself. updated my resume, reached out to contacts, started interviewing for new positions. I also spent time with Elena, took her to movies, helped with homework, tried to pretend I wasn't terrified about the mortgage payment coming due in 3 weeks. My phone was quiet. No calls from Hartwell, no panicked emails. I figured the outsourcing team had everything under control. I was wrong. Week 2, I started hearing rumors from former colleagues. The outsourcing team was struggling. Systems were running slow. Nobody could figure out my documentation. They keep asking where things are. My friend Marcus from accounting texted me. I told them to check your notes, but they say they can't understand them. My notes were detailed and clear, but they were written for someone with actual security expertise, not for a general IT team that specialized in basic help desk support. Week 3, things got worse. The outsourcing team accidentally deleted a backup server. 2 months of clinical trial data vanished. They recovered most of it from secondary backups, but the process took 4 days. Patricia apparently screamed at someone on a conference call. Victor sent a company-wide email about temporary technical difficulties. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered security escorting me out, remembered Patricia's condescending smile, remembered 9 years of loyalty being reduced to 3 days of notice. The almost disappeared. Week 4, they hit the wall I'd been expecting. The quarterly security rotation, something I'd built into the system years ago. Every 90 days, encryption keys automatically rotated to prevent unauthorized access. It was a standard security practice for pharmaceutical companies handling sensitive data. The rotation required the master decryption key, the one that walked out the door with me. The outsourcing team didn't know about the rotation. Patricia had never asked. Victor had never remembered. So when the systems locked down at midnight on a Tuesday, nobody understood what was happening. They tried to crack it themselves. Failed. They called the software vendors. The vendors said they'd need the original encryption key to help. They tried to restore from backups. The backups were encrypted too. By Thursday, they were in full panic mode. Clinical trial data locked. Patient records locked. Research documentation locked. FDA compliance files locked. Everything I'd spent 9 years protecting was now protecting itself from the people who'd thrown me away. That's when Victor called me, not at 3 a.m. That came later. First, he tried during business hours. I didn't answer. He tried email. I didn't respond. He had Patricia try. I definitely didn't respond to her. Finally, he had Marcus reach out informally. Dana, they're desperate. Victor is willing to pay consultant rates to get you back temporarily. What rates? He mentioned $200 an hour. I laughed out loud. Tell him I'll think about it. I thought about it for 2 weeks, during which time the situation at Hartwell got progressively worse. The FDA announced an inspection, routine but mandatory. They'd need access to all clinical trial documentation, all patient safety records, all research data, all of which was locked behind my encryption. Victor's lawyers got involved. They explored their options, tried to find legal ways to force me to hand over the key. But I'd built the system on my own time, using my own methodology. The key wasn't technically company property. It was my personal security protocol that I'd implemented to protect company assets. Their lawyers couldn't find an angle. That's when the 3 a.m. call came. The FDA inspection was 72 hours away. The outsourcing team had completely failed. Patricia had apparently submitted her resignation the previous day. And Victor Hartwell, CEO, the man who'd had security escort me out after 9 years, was crying on the phone, begging for my help. $8,000 an hour seemed like a reasonable starting point. The wire transfer hit my account at 5:47 a.m., $192,000, 24 hours of work at $8,000 per hour, paid in advance. I showered, dressed in my best professional outfit, and drove to Hartwell Biomedical Solutions, the same building I'd been escorted out of 6 weeks earlier. Victor was waiting in the lobby. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Probably hadn't. "Dana, Thank you. Thank you for coming. The money's in my account. Let's get to work." He led me upstairs, past the security desk where they'd walked me out, past the offices of people who'd watched me leave without saying goodbye, past Patricia's empty office, already being cleared out. The IT room was chaos. 3 members of the outsourcing team were there, looking exhausted and defeated. They'd been working around the clock for 2 weeks trying to crack my encryption. "Everyone out," I said. "I work alone." Victor nodded. The outsourcing team shuffled out, avoiding my eyes. I sat down at my old desk, my old chair, my old keyboard, like I'd never left, except now I was being paid $8,000 an hour instead of 45. The work itself took about 6 hours. The encryption system wasn't actually that complicated if you knew how it worked. Enter the master key, authorize the new rotation cycle, reset the access protocols. But I didn't rush. I took my time, documented everything I did, made sure the systems were stable. And I did something else, something I hadn't told Victor about. I built a new backup key system, one that multiple people could access, one that wouldn't leave the company vulnerable again. Then I wrote a comprehensive transition document, 60 pages of instructions, everything anyone would need to maintain the systems going forward. At hour 20, Victor came to check on me. "How's it going?" "Almost done." I turned to face him, "But we need to talk." He sat down. The arrogance was completely gone. Just a tired, scared man who'd almost lost everything. "I've unlocked everything. Your FDA inspection will go fine. But I've also built you a new system, one that doesn't depend on a single person holding all the keys." That's more than we asked for." "I know. Consider it a final gift from someone who actually cared about this company for 9 years. He was quiet for a long moment. "Dana, I'm sorry for how we handled your departure, for Patricia, for all of it. I know. I should have listened to you when you warned us about the outsourcing, when you tried to explain the systems. I should have paid attention." "Yes, you should have. Is there any chance you'd consider coming back? We'd match whatever you're making now, better title, more authority, whatever you want." I'd thought about this moment, imagined it during those 6 weeks of uncertainty, what I'd say when they inevitably came crawling back. "No." Victor's face fell. "I gave you 9 years. I built everything that keeps this company running, and when someone with a spreadsheet told me I was too expensive, you threw me away in 3 days." I stood up. "I don't want to work for people who see me as overhead. I don't want to build things for companies that don't understand their value until it's too late." "What will you do?" "I have offers, good ones, from companies that understand what security expertise is actually worth." I gathered my things. "Plus, I have $192,000 that I didn't have yesterday. That buys me time to be selective." I walked toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. That 60-page transition document I wrote, the new backup system I built, that wasn't part of our agreement. I did that because I actually care about the 200 people who work here, the ones who had nothing to do with the decision to fire me." Victor nodded slowly. "But if you ever try to undervalue an employee like that again, remember this moment. Remember how much it cost you. Remember calling me at 3 a.m. crying because you thought saving $95,000 a year was worth more than keeping the person who protected everything." I opened the door. "The price of arrogance is always higher than you expect. Good night, Victor." I walked out of Hartwell Biomedical Solutions for the second time. But this time, I wasn't being escorted by security. I was leaving on my own terms, with $192,000 in my account and my dignity completely intact. 6 months later, I'm in a very different place. I took one of those offers I mentioned, Chief Information Security Officer at a medical devices company, team of 12, salary that makes my old position look like an internship, and a CEO who told me in my interview, "Your job is to protect us from ourselves. I never want to hear that something is too expensive if it keeps us safe." Music to my ears. Elena's doing great. We moved to a better neighborhood. She's in a school she loves. And I'm actually home for dinner most nights because my new company respects work-life balance. Funny how that works when companies actually value their employees. I still think about Hartwell sometimes, about Victor's voice cracking at 3 a.m., about Patricia clearing out her office, about the outsourcing team that thought $15 an hour could replace 9 years of expertise. I heard the FDA inspection went fine. My documentation was thorough enough that even without me there, they passed. The drug got approved, the company survived. Part of me is glad. Those 200 employees didn't deserve to lose their jobs because of executive arrogance. But I'm also glad I'm not there to see it, not there to be taken for granted again, not there to wait for the next Patricia to come along and decide I'm too expensive. Here's what I learned from all of this. Your expertise has value, real value, the kind of value that companies don't appreciate until it's gone. Don't wait for a crisis to know your worth. Don't wait for them to escort you out before you realize that loyalty is a one-way street. Don't assume that hard work and dedication will protect you when someone with a spreadsheet decides your overhead. Protect yourself. Document your contributions. Understand exactly what you bring to the table and what would happen if you weren't there. And if they do let you go, if they do decide that cheap outsourcing is more important than your expertise, don't be bitter. Be ready. Because someday, probably sooner than they expect, the phone will ring at 3 a.m. And when it does, you want to be in a position to name your price. $8,000 an hour isn't revenge. It's market rate for saving a $400 million drug approval with 72 hours notice. The fact that it felt like justice was just a bonus. If you've made it this far, thank you. Seriously, thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been the irreplaceable person who got replaced anyway, if you've ever watched someone undervalue your work and then panic when you were gone, if you've ever dreamed about that 3 a.m. phone call, drop a comment. Tell me your story. I read every single one, usually over my morning coffee at my new job where I'm actually appreciated. And here's the thing, we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. We're not far off. Every single person who subscribes helps more than you know. It tells the algorithm this content matters. It helps these stories reach more people who need to hear them. It builds a community of people who understand that our work has value even when corporations don't see it. So if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 1,000. Be part of something. Share this with the person at your company who keeps everything running, the one who's being taken for granted, the one who might be next on some executive's cost-cutting list. They need to know they're not alone. They need to know their expertise matters. They need to know that sometimes, just sometimes, the people who undervalue us learn exactly how wrong they were. At 3 a.m. when everything's falling apart, and the only person who can fix it is the one they threw away. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. And remember, always know where the keys are, especially the ones nobody else can find.